Kchimigwech, Kchimanado, Meanwan, Nagoding, Kiwabdamang, Keysha, Keysas, Kibanabid, Kchimigwech, Kimijang, Yosab Pimàdjwowin, Kchimigwech, Kimijang, Nigigog, Widokwishnon, Dejitamayang, Gewakjamoseyang, Kchimigwech, Kchimanado, Kinagego, Migwech, Miu.
Dear friends, on behalf of the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation, Pijoshin, Kakina, Tinizieg, Nongom, welcome, bienvenue to everyone on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Anishinaabe akin ate awiso kikanawa dijikan. This land we're on is the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank and honor the land and the people of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose families have lived for thousands and thousands of years on this unsurrendered territory. We acknowledge the enduring presence of all First Nation, Inuit and Métis people who call our Algonquin territory their home. In memory of the 215 children who perished in the Kamloops Indian Residential School, we pray for you. In memory of all children whose lives were stolen in residential schools, we pray for you. Iliu nama awenon, maba, masema, minwa na winanan, gedapa gedinamagam. We offer our prayers, tobacco, and our hearts. I would like to provide a bit of history behind the date of 21st of June. It was chosen to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day because it corresponds with the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, that many Indigenous groups have traditionally celebrated their culture and heritage. Also in 1996, the Governor-General of Canada, Romeo LeBlanc, proclaimed that the federal government would recognize National Aboriginal Day on this date. In 2017, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the symbolic renaming to National Indigenous Peoples Day, coinciding with the preferred term to refer to the original inhabitants of what we know now as Canada. This day is an opportunity to learn about and celebrate the unique Indigenous peoples in surrounding communities and the region.
Kwe kakina nijubik indigenakas maingen dodem Pikwakanagan nidonjaba Omàmiwininì Pimàdjwowin nidanaki. Today we are celebrating who we are as Anishinaabe from the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation. Since time immemorial, we have honored and continue to honor the kinship relationships we have to this land, our nation, community, and families. I'm really excited to share a piece of who we are and where we come from with you today. We put out a call to our community members to share photos of how they celebrate our culture. Today you will see how our language is still being spoken, how our songs are still being sung, and our people are still ever present on this land that we call Indayang, our home. Please enjoy this awesome video we put together that represents our community connections and celebrates National Indigenous Peoples Day.
Calling all dancers, let's put on our dancing show and Google on the barbecue rhythm. It's good for you, live it up.
Hello everyone, my name is Ron Bernard. I'm Anishinaabe and I'm a member of the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation. I've been asked to speak about the history of the Anishinaabe Algonquin community of Pikwakanagan. The science of archaeology has proven that the shores of the Kichisibi, Ottawa River, have been inhabited by humans for about 10,000 years. Those inhabitants were our Anishinaabe ancestors and their predecessors. They occupied the entire drainage basin of the Ottawa River, an area of 146,300 square kilometers, 35% of which is in the province of Ontario and 65% in Quebec. Late in the 15th century, European explorers operating under their doctrine of discovery began arriving on the shores of Turtle Island, now called North America. The doctrine of discovery, published by European monarchies, stated that if any of their explorers found no Christians on the land that he discovered, then he was supported in the dehumanization of those living on the land and their dispossession, murder, and forced assimilation. This doctrine was supported by the Roman Catholic Church. The operation of the doctrine of discovery has been seen in Canada. In Newfoundland, the European settlers made a sport of hunting and killing to extinction the indigenous people, the Beothuk. Royal Proclamation of 1763, a law proclaimed by the Honourable Crown, described the boundaries of the colony of Quebec and, contrary to the doctrine of discovery, declared that the land to the west of that colony was Indian territory. Any of the Crown's subjects who had deliberately or inadvertently settled there should immediately remove themselves, and that the Indians were not to be disturbed in their territory. 9 years later, in 1771, our first petition was filed with the Honourable Crown because the Royal Proclamation was neither being honoured nor enforced. During the following 212 years until 1983, Anishinaabe Algonquins filed 30 petitions, letters, and speeches to the Honourable Crown protesting the lack of enforcement of the law that made European settlement illegal. During those 212 years, the Honourable Crown gave no substantial response to our petitions, and the illegal occupation of our territories by settlers continued unabated until no land was available to the Anishinaabe Algonquins. In 1876, the residential school system established by the Honourable Crown's representative, John A. MacDonald, and was given the mandate to take the Indian out of the child. Children as young as 5 years were sometimes forcibly taken from their homes to these schools, and if they spoke their ancestral language at that school, they were punished. One punishment being a pin stuck in the child's tongue. In 1920, speaking about the Gradual Civilization Act, Duncan Campbell Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Indian Affairs, stated, "I want to get rid of the Indian problem. Our objective is to continue until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic, and there is no Indian question and no Indian department. That is the whole object of this bill. This cultural genocide program against the Indigenous people of Canada has resulted in the loss of our ancestral language, therefore the loss of our oral history, which had been relayed in our language from generation to generation. That is why we have very little or no knowledge of our history prior to European contact. In 1857, a group of Anishinaabe Algonquins petitioned for land at Golden Lake. In 1873, Golden Lake Indian Reserve No. 39 was established with Canada's purchase of 1,561 acres of land from the province of Ontario at a cost of 10 cents per acre. An additional 193.92 acres were added to the reserve in 1948 when the Honourable Crown purchased an adjacent farm. Inias Makwa was the first Indian Act chief. In 1962, a newspaper published an article entitled Indian Reserve Established in 1864, which stated, in pursuance of the petition by Algonquins who had squatted in South Algona, an application was made in 1859 by the Department of Indian Affairs to the Department of Crown Lands, Ontario, asking that the lands they occupied might be sold to them. It's ironic that the people who've inhabited this land for 10 or 11,000 years have been referred to as squatters by the real squatters who settled on this land illegally, and that money was exchanged between two agents of the Honourable Crown in order to provide a small portion of land for those who have never surrendered their 9 million acres to anyone. That newspaper article also stated 5.5 acres upon which the Roman Catholic Church is situated never formed part of the Golden Lake Reserve. This statement is not true. In 1872, the first Roman Catholic permanent chapel was built on 5 acres of his certificate of possession land set aside for that purpose by Jean-Baptiste Pesnawatch. One report says that the church was rebuilt after destruction by fire in the 1930s. The present church was built in 1954. In 1878, there were 19 Anishinaabe Algonquin families residing on the reserve. Between 1894 and 1898, lumber baron J.R. Booth built his Ottawa, Arnprior, and Parry Sound Railway through Golden Lake Indian Reserve No. 39. Many families in Pikwakanagan were affected by the child welfare system in further attempts at assimilation. It is now called the 60s Scoop, but it extends beyond the 1960s, and to this day, our children continue to be apprehended. In 1920, the Indian Day School was built on the reserve, housing grades 1 through grade 10 in one room with one teacher. In the 1950s, a second school was built to accommodate the increasing number of students. This school took grades 1 to grade 5 in one room with one teacher. The building also contained an apartment for 2 teachers. As at the residential schools, Anishinaabe Algonquin language was forbidden on the grounds of the day school on the reserve. Those day schools closed in the mid-1960s. All of our community students were transferred to public and separate schools in Eganville and to secondary schools at Apyongo High School. All students are transported by bus. In 1966, the last Indian agent departed. An office building was constructed on the reserve, and the administration of our community affairs became the responsibility of our own administrator and staff. Since then, our community has progressed in leaps and bounds. In 1977, Tennisco Manor was built. This was alternate housing for older single members who needed shelter, room and board only. The original Tennisco Manor building was replaced by a new building with assisted living care in the year 2000. In 1983, an agreement was signed with South Algona Township for the fire protection of our community. This agreement was the first of its kind in Ontario. In 1984, we built a new ball field. In 1989, Makwa Community Center was built. In 1995, the new daycare building. The architect of this building received an award for its design. In 1987, the revival of our traditional powwow, a ceremony that had been forbidden by the Honorable Crown and has now been celebrated annually for 32 years, but not in the year 2020 due to COVID-19. In 1997, Child and Family Services Building was constructed. In 1998, our Community Health Center was built. In the year 2000, our Makwa Community Center was expanded. In the year 2000, our fire rescue station was built, housing our volunteer fire rescue team. In 2002, we established Omàmiwininì Pimàdjwowin, the Algonquin Way Cultural Centre, which is an Ontario corporation with charity status, and its mission to revitalize, reintegrate, enhance, and protect the cultural traditions, customs, practices, heritage, language, and arts of the Algonquin Nation. In 2002, we built a new administration building, a 2-story frame building with full basement housing offices for our staff, library, conference room, lunchroom, and the council house. The administration building was designed and constructed by our own staff, completed ahead of schedule, and under budget. The name of our community. Just prior to 2012, we decided it was time our community had a name of our own choice. A large area around the lake now called Golden Lake was identified by our ancestors as Pikwakanagan. So in their honor, we decided to use that name for our community. We applied to the Ontario Geographic Names Board. The board approved our application. So, effective December 12, 2012, Golden Lake Indian Reserve number 39 is officially named Pikwakanagan. We could not get our own postal code due to insufficient population, so we share Golden Lake's postal code. We have established and are included in a body called the Algonquins of Ontario, through which we are negotiating a treaty with Canada and Ontario. The treaty is perhaps the most extensive in Canada and is the only one of its kind dealing with unceded, unsurrendered land in Ontario. It includes the land that Canada currently occupies, known as Parliament Hill. We are also negotiating self-government for Pikwakanagan. To everyone celebrating or acknowledging Indigenous Peoples Day and month, I extend best wishes for your health and safety. I hope this presentation helps to give you a primer on our history as Indigenous people and as Algonquins specifically. Thank you for your time and attention.
National Indigenous Peoples Day offers everyone an opportunity to deepen their understanding and awareness of the unique adversities Indigenous peoples face and have overcome. What can you do to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? Well, you could learn some Indigenous languages. There is a nationwide push for Indigenous language revitalization and for some to be recognized as official languages. Omàmiwininì Pimàdjwowin, Algonquin word of the day, can be found on their website. You can also know whose land you are on. If you are non-Indigenous, you are occupying land that is being colonized. To have a greater understanding of the land's original caregivers and history, you can visit Whose Land app. This is an educational tool and an interactive map. It is useful to understand Indigenous treaties and communities across Canada. You can also support Indigenous businesses and services. There are many Indigenous business and services across province and Renfrew County, as well as here in Pikwakanagan, that would benefit from non-Indigenous customers, and shopping with them can be a great way to support Indigenous people. When the time comes when we are able to attend a powwow, know the protocol. Take the time before going to a powwow or a ceremony to understand the protocol, whether that be by researching or kindly asking a volunteer or a worker once you have arrived. What else can you do? Don't be a bystander. Be an ally. Do everything that you can do to end racism and discrimination for all people. Please feel free to visit our Algonquins of Pikwakanagan website for further information about our community. Iliu nama awenan, maba, nasema, minwa, noodawananan, gadapaka dinamagam. We offer our prayers, tobacco, and our hearts to everyone celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day 2021. Miigwech, thank you, merci beaucoup.